So you thought 500 hours was impressive. How about 1,700? Well, at least that's what it says in game, so I don't know, it's probably lower. Now that I've gotten the clickbait part out of the way, there is no way I spent 1,700 hours on this level. My best guess is around 250 to 500. I have no clue what caused this, and there is no way I spent 72 days straight in the editor on this. I did, however, make this my best level to date, beating both Roots, the obscure me level, and Sprawled on the Moon, the popular me level in quality. And I'm going to go through the entire process of building it. The layout in its original form is wildly unbalanced, and I find it really funny because of that. The difficulty flip-flops in a completely bullshit way, with some of the parts being around 7 stars in difficulty, and the others being hard demon. Also, the boss is like 3 times harder than everything else. The main inspiration for it was Generation Retro and GD Cologne's video on it. I saw the boss fight and fell in love with the level. The text is obviously hampered by the language barrier, but it really adds to the charm of the level. So I ripped it word for word, bar for bar as some would say. The boss fight is the main attraction, and besides that, most of the gameplay is fine, nothing crazy, but the boss fight is unhinged. I put a lot of work into little animations and it paid off, and I did most of it in the layout stage so that I didn't have to do it while I was decorating. I don't have much more to say about the gameplay, so I'll move on. This is the meat and potatoes level. I will try to be as in-depth as I can without being boring. The first part is outside of the factory, and its final form is very different than my original plan. As you can see on screen now, this is what is planned to look like. And I also had plans for a pipe leaking toxic waste into the water. That was scrapped after the realization I would have to make it 3D though. The part that is in the finished product has dot shading for the rock/metal shapes, and an ocean in the background. And wow, look at that boat, I'm sure nothing bad will happen to it. Anyways, there's also these background hills, and after that devastating, soul-crushing, day-ruining incident, we enter the next part. To go there, you go through a vent, traverse a tube, and end up in the incinerator. You can tell it's hot because the stuff melts when you touch it. Most of this part was the same as when I was planning it, but it was refined a bit, as seen in the old fire animations versus the new ones. This was actually a huge progress block because I didn't want to work on the melting animations. I eventually moved on through and made this background system, which basically loads the next chunk of the background every time you pass through the border between chunks, sort of like a draw distance in video games. There is a quick transition. It has this little pulse thingy. There's not much to say about it. It syncs to the doon doon dee doo in the song. Next part has gears and pistons. This is probably the least interesting part. There's nothing to go into really. It also has ketchup on the pistons. Just ketchup, nothing else. After some surprise power outages, the next part starts. This one has a lot more going into it than the previous part, with all the silhouettes having different movements, like look at the buzzsaws, or this one block. This is one of the only uses of glow in the entire level, and I think it works pretty well. It does a good job of making everything seem more secluded than it is, and when the power turns back on, you must have stumbled pretty far, because you enter the research laboratory where they're making flesh cubes? This part is also some of my best work, with the leaking tanks and all those little references I put in the background, such as Color Game. Go play Color Game. I also hosted a little competition thing to put something in one of the tanks. Zeronium won, so I had to put his icon in one of them. I need to pad for time now, so here is every reference in the tanks. Number 1, my logo. Number 2, an asset I stole from a friend 2 times. Number 3, this dude from my first Godot project. Number 4, a Wordle spoiler. Number 5, the aforementioned Color Game. Number 6, an inside joke with a specific friend group. Number 7, a reference to a friend's level. Number 8, Zeronium's icon, as I mentioned before. Moving on to the foreground, I spent way too much time on the tanks. I'm also really proud of the meat textures. The leaking animations have 3 parts: the crack in the glass, which toggles on when you hit it, the piece of glass that is knocked out, and then the green goop that leaks out. I had constant issues with rotation points while building this part. After leaving the lab, you enter the office space. Apparently the penguins working there have built a cubicle fortress with ramparts. Also, this one dude's computer just melts. I also made the most pointless detail of all time. This computer is running Penguin OS, therefore its screensaver is a spinning penguin. I decided to animate this. 2 people will see it. There's also some wacky 3D shenanigans going on that don't make much sense since everything else is 2D. After that, there's more info on how this Penguin OS works. Apparently it's like a crude mash of Linux and Windows. It boots to a shell script. Of course, I chose to animate this. In fact, in this next subsection, almost everything has some little detail, such as, did you know that this one block has the serial number 798655367? Also, look at this title card. Now, this is probably my favorite part. You saw most of the animations for it already, but what I did was change out the placeholder projectiles for different things. I tried to keep the spirit of the attacks alive, though. For instance, the 3 saws got replaced with a missile, or these blank saws got replaced by cool saws. If you want the true original gangster version of the boss fight, tick the little LDM checkbox. It replaces the things with the old versions. Thanks to all the playtesters, and now, showcase time! Okay, now that you've seen it, before I end the video, quick trivia fact. The official name for the boss is the Cyber Penguin. It is a reference to Doom 1993, and one of its more infamous enemies, the Cyber Demon. And I guess that wraps up the video. Please subscribe for more of me, being me, every Sunday at 9 AM PST. Even if I don't live up to that promise.